This is how it all started.
닥쳐. 내 사업을 어떻게 운영해야 할지 말할 수 없어.
Shut up. You can't tell me how to run my business.
그리고 당신은 좋은 사업을 운영하는 윤리 중 하나가 좋은 고객 관계를 맺는다는 사실을 잊었습니다.
And you forgot that one of the ethics of running a good business is having good customer relations.
The boardroom was dead silent. Numbers flashed red across the screen, an empire once envied now gasping for air. Kang Min's reflection in the glass wall looked older, defeated. The empire he built with precision was slipping through his fingers. Seoul's skyline glittered beyond the window, mocking his fall from grace. Behind him, the door creaked open. Tiana stood there, her eyes soft but steady, carrying warmth he'd long forgotten in himself. "Still fighting?" she asked quietly. He managed a broken smile. "Trying to save what I built." She stepped closer, her voice a whisper. "No. What will rebuild?" A year had passed since the wedding that had once made international headlines, the Korean CEO and the black waitress whose kindness had melted his pride. Now, in their quiet Seoul apartment overlooking the Han River, life had softened into rhythm. Morning sunlight spilled through gauzy curtains, bathing the kitchen in a gentle gold glow. Tiana stood by the counter, flipping pancakes while humming a tune from her childhood in Atlanta. Kang Min, sleeves rolled to his elbows, poured coffee, pretending not to watch her. "Stop staring," she teased, glancing over her shoulder. He smirked. "If I don't, who will?" She laughed, shaking her head. "You should be reading your reports, not me." He leaned against the counter, savoring the peace. "Reports don't smile at me like that." For a man once defined by control and power, Kang Min had found new strength in simplicity. Their mornings were filled with laughter, their evenings with study sessions and quiet comfort. Tiana was thriving in business school, fluent now in Korean, admired by classmates for her insight and charm. Professors praised her for bridging cultural gaps with grace. Kang Min often waited outside her campus, watching her walk out with her books pressed to her chest, confident and radiant. That night after dinner, he sat beside her as she reviewed case studies. "Your presentation tomorrow," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're ready?" "Almost," she murmured, scribbling notes. "It's about cross-cultural branding. I used our restaurant story as an example." He chuckled softly. "We're becoming a case study already?" Her eyes gleamed. A success story, not a scandal. He didn't tell her then about the news alerts that had begun to ripple across his phone, competitors rising, the market tightening. The empire he'd built, Hanel Dining Group, was facing its toughest quarter yet. 2 weeks later, the headlines changed tone. Hanil Dining faces sharp revenue drop. Rival chain Seihua expands aggressively. Inside the boardroom, murmurs replaced respect. Kang Min's leadership was being questioned, not openly, but in sidelong glances and half-whispered comments. One evening, after a particularly tense meeting, he stood by the glass wall, Seoul glittering below him like spilled stars. His reflection looked hollow. When Tiana called that night, he hesitated before answering. "You missed dinner again," she said softly. "I know. I'm sorry. You sound tired." "I'm fine," he lied. There was silence, then her voice, tender and knowing. "Don't shut me out, Kang Min." He swallowed hard. She didn't know how close to collapse everything felt. The next morning, he arrived at the restaurant headquarters to find the board already assembled. Investors, advisors, and longtime partners filled the long table. The air was thick with judgment. Mr. Cho, the senior investor, cleared his throat. "We've noticed a shift in brand perception," he said carefully. "Some customers believe the company's direction has become too westernized." The words hung like a slap. Kang Min stiffened. Our concept has always been about cultural harmony. Yes, another investor murmured, but harmony shouldn't dilute authenticity. He caught what they meant. The whispers about his wife, about how her presence changed how people saw him. He clenched his jaw. Our food speaks for itself. Mr. Cho leaned forward. Emotion doesn't fix numbers, CEO Kang. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. That night, at home, Tiana found him on the balcony, eyes lost in the cityscape. The wind tugged at his tie, the night cold against his face. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. "You're somewhere else," she whispered. He exhaled shakily. "Every empire trembles before it falls." She frowned. "Don't talk like that." He turned, finally meeting her gaze. "They think I've let emotion cloud my judgment." "Because you married me?" she said quietly. He looked away, the silence answer enough. Tiana stepped back, hurt flickering across her face. Then she whispered a line in Korean that caught him off guard. "사랑해운 약점이 아니라 이유야." Love is not a weakness, it's the reason. He blinked, startled, her words sinking deep. It was the first time she had used Korean to argue, to defend their love. He took her hands, his voice breaking. "Tiana, I thought love would make me stronger, not weaker." She squeezed his fingers. "Then let's make it your strength again." That night, as rain pattered softly against the windows, Kang Min sat alone at his desk. Reports, projections, and red numbers glared up at him. The weight of his empire pressed heavy on his shoulders. In another room, Tiana's voice hummed faintly, a soft melody from home. It blended with the rhythm of Seoul's rain, tender and resolute. He looked up, watching her silhouette move through the apartment light, and whispered to himself as if praying, "Maybe love isn't supposed to protect us from storms. Maybe it's what teaches us how to stand in the rain." The night deepened, and for the first time Kang Min realized the fall had already begun. But so had something else. A quiet, defiant beginning. The ballroom shimmered beneath 1,000 golden lights. Crystal glasses clinked, and the hum of conversation filled the air like static. It was the annual Investors' Gala, a night of alliances and unspoken rivalries. Kang Min arrived late, his black tuxedo tailored sharp as armor, but the weight beneath it was heavy. The company's quarterly losses had leaked to the press, and the whispers followed him like shadows. "CEO Kang!" someone called out. He turned and froze. Jisoo Park stood near the stage, poised and radiant, wrapped in a silver gown that seemed to command the room's attention. She had always been the kind of woman who never chased approval because she already had it. They'd known each other for years, once colleagues, almost friends. But tonight, something in her eyes was different, curiosity tinged with calculation. "Kang Min?" she greeted with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You look tired." "The empire showing cracks?" He gave a small, polite nod. "Temporary. Empires bend. They don't break. Unless someone stronger decides to rebuild them," she murmured. He ignored the jab, offering a tight smile before excusing himself. But her gaze followed him all night, sharp and deliberate. The next morning, the boardroom was tense once more. Stacks of reports sat unread while investors muttered about losses. Kang Min's name was trending online. Rumors, criticism, doubt. Mr. Cho's voice cut through the murmurs. "CEO Kang, we need immediate capital infusion. Without it, we'll be insolvent in months." Kang Min straightened his tie. "I'm already seeking partners." That was when the door opened. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. The air itself seemed to change as Jisoo entered. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, confidence echoing louder than words. "I might be able to help," she said smoothly, placing a folder on the table. $50 million. Immediate liquidity. The room fell silent. Heads turned. Kang Min blinked. What's the condition? Her smile curved slow and cruel. Simple. Divorce your wife and marry me. The air seemed to vanish. Even the hum of the projector died. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. You can't be serious, Kang Min said finally, his voice low and trembling with fury. Oh, I'm entirely serious, Jisoo replied, walking closer. Your wife is bad for business. Investors think your marriage diluted the brand. But if you married me, a respected traditional Korean woman, public image would recover instantly. It's strategic, not personal. He rose from his chair, eyes burning. You call destroying my marriage strategy? Jisoo didn't flinch. I call it survival. Think about it. Your father's legacy, your employees, your reputation. One decision, and you could save it all. He slammed his hand against the table. I'd rather see everything burn than betray the woman who taught me what honor means. Silence. Only the faint hum of the city below them filled the air. Jisoo's expression hardened, her charm slipping into venom. You'll regret this? Maybe, he said quietly, but not as much as I'd regret becoming you. For a fleeting second, her mask cracked. Then she smiled, cold, deliberate. You'll lose both, Kang Min. Your company and her. She turned and left, her perfume lingering like poison. That evening, Kang Min sat alone in his office. The skyline stretched endlessly before him, lights flickering like dying stars. His chest felt heavy, suffocating. Jisoo's words repeated in his mind like a curse. He hadn't told Tiana yet. How could he? How could he admit that someone had placed a price tag on their marriage? His phone buzzed, a message from her. Tiana, are you coming home soon? I made your favorite stew. He stared at the words for a long time before replying. Kang Min, I'll be late tonight. Don't wait up. When he finally left the office, Seoul's streets were nearly empty. The rain had started again, soft and relentless. He stopped beneath a streetlight, his reflection in the puddle fractured by ripples. The next morning, Tiana noticed his distant gaze at breakfast. You didn't sleep, she said gently. He forced a smile. Too much on my mind. She reached across the table, brushing her thumb over his hand. Then let me carry some of it. He looked at her. The woman who had once been a waitress enduring his arrogance, who had changed his heart without asking for anything in return. And now, because of her, the world questioned his strength. No, because of them, they questioned love itself. He wanted to tell her everything, but fear held his tongue. Instead, he stood and kissed her forehead. I'll fix this, he whispered. She watched him leave, feeling the quiet shift between them, the space where secrets began to grow. That night, Jisoo sat alone in her penthouse suite, a glass of wine in hand, watching Kang Min's latest press conference on TV. His voice was steady, but his eyes were tired. She smiled faintly. You still think love is enough to save you? She whispered to the empty room. Then she picked up her phone, dialing a number. Plant the story, she said. Make sure the media knows she's the reason for the company's fall. Back at home, Tiana sat by the window, scrolling through social media. Her chest tightened as she saw the first post. Foreign CEO's wife blamed for downfall of Korean brand. Then another, inside the marriage that cost millions. Her hands trembled. The words stung deeper than she wanted to admit. But when she heard the door unlock, she quickly wiped her tears and smiled. You're home, she said, her voice steady. Kang Min looked at her, exhaustion in every line of his face. I am. He didn't notice the open article glowing on her tablet. She took his hand and whispered in Korean, Hamgaramyan, Igyonel su iseo. If we're together, we can endure anything. He nodded, his throat tight. Outside, Seoul glimmered with storm light. Inside, silence settled like a fragile truce. Neither of them knew yet how close the storm was, or how much it would take to survive it. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. It fell over Seoul like a quiet punishment, drumming against the glass walls of Kang Min's office. The world outside continued to move, cars gliding, people rushing, but inside, time had stilled into something heavy and slow. Kang Min sat at his desk, the television screen behind him looping the same report. Hanul dining faces scandal amid cultural controversy. His wife's picture flashed briefly, a candid photo of Tiana smiling beside a market stall. To the world, she was the symbol of everything foreign about him. To him, she was the only thing still real. He turned off the screen. The silence hurt more. When he arrived home that night, the apartment lights were low. Tiana was on the balcony, her shoulders wrapped in a shawl, the city reflected in her eyes. She didn't turn when he came closer. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked softly. He froze. Knew what? That they were blaming me. That this storm was already coming. He took a step forward. "I didn't want to worry you." "You didn't want me to know," she corrected. Her voice wasn't angry, just wounded, like the calm before breaking. "You think I'm fragile, Kang Min? That I can't handle your world?" He ran a hand through his hair, weary. "You don't understand the cruelty of it. They don't just attack the company. They'll attack you. Every word, every look will turn into poison." Tiana turned to face him, her eyes fierce through the tears. "Then let me stand beside you through it. You once saved me from humiliation. Let me save you from ruin." Her words broke something inside him, the wall he'd built between love and duty. He reached for her hand, his fingers trembling. "Do you even know what you're asking?" he whispered. She nodded. "To fight." Together that night, she joined him in the study, reports and financial statements scattered across the desk, half unread. Tiana scanned the pages, brow furrowing in thought. "Your digital presence is outdated," she said finally. "Sehwa's restaurants are using online influencers and modern booking systems. Hanul still relies on reputation alone." He frowned. "We built our name on tradition." "And that's what's killing you," she replied gently. "Tradition isn't supposed to suffocate progress. It's supposed to guide it." He looked at her. This woman, who had once served him coffee in silence, now speaking like a strategist with fire in her voice. She smiled faintly, as if reading his thoughts. "You taught me how to lead with confidence. Now it's my turn to remind you how to hope days turned into weeks." They worked side by side, analyzing reports, crafting proposals. Kang Min began bringing Tiana to internal meetings, introducing her as an advisor. Some executives sneered quietly, their pride wounded by the sight of a woman, a foreign woman, holding her own in a Korean boardroom. At one meeting, a younger director muttered, "She doesn't belong here." Tiana turned to him calmly, her Korean flawless. "여기에 있는 이유는 내가 자격이 있기 때문이에요. The reason I'm here is because I've earned my place." The room went silent. Even Kang Min's chest swelled with pride. Afterward, he found her by the elevator, smiling to herself. "You didn't have to defend yourself," he said. She looked up at him. "I wasn't defending myself. I was defending us." But for every small victory, another rumor rose. Anonymous posts flooded online. "She's manipulating him. He's lost focus since marrying her." The board began pressing for his resignation. Jisoo's influence was everywhere. Articles, interviews, whispers disguised as concern. One evening, Kang Min found an anonymous email waiting for him. A leaked photo of him and Tiana leaving the office together, captioned, "Love or Liability." He stared at it for a long time, then quietly closed his laptop. That night, as Tiana slept, He stood by the window again, staring at the city that once adored him. He could still remember when his name meant something more than scandal. Now, it was a weapon used against the woman he loved. He whispered under his breath, "What if I'm the reason she suffers?" Behind him, Tiana stirred. "Then suffer with me," she murmured sleepily. "But don't you dare give up." Her voice, soft and half-dreaming, pulled him back from the edge. He turned, smiling faintly. "You never stop fighting, do you?" She opened her eyes, meeting his with quiet certainty. "Not for love. Not for us." The next morning, Kang Min walked into the office with new resolve. He no longer cared about whispers or stares. He had a partner now, not a liability, but his strength. Tiana followed him through the glass doors, her chin lifted high. The employees watched, some curious, some resentful, but for the first time, Kang Min didn't feel shame in their gaze. He looked at her and said softly, "그들은 네가 약점이라고 생각하지만 넌 내 힘이야. They think you're my weakness, but you're my strength." She smiled, tears glimmering at the edges of her eyes. Outside, the rain finally began to ease. And as sunlight broke through the clouds, a quiet truth settled in Kang Min's heart. Empires didn't fall because of storms. They fell when their leaders forgot who they were fighting for. The first light of dawn crept across Seoul, turning the Han River silver. Inside the office of Haneul Dining Group, the glow from a single desk lamp burned long before the city truly woke. Tiana sat surrounded by towers of reports, her laptop open, sticky notes crowding the screen. Empty coffee cups lined the desk like soldiers in retreat. Her eyes were tired, but her focus never wavered. She rubbed her neck and whispered to the small photo pinned to her monitor, a picture of her grandmother smiling from a sunlit porch in Georgia. "You told me to keep shining when people try to dim my light." "Guess I finally understand what you meant." Behind her, the office door creaked. Kang Min entered, jacket draped over one arm, surprise softening his features. "You've been here all night?" She smiled weakly. "Since last night turned into this morning." He walked closer, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "You're working harder than my entire executive team." "Maybe that's why your numbers are finally changing," she teased, turning the laptop toward him. On the screen, a new report glowed, a 3-month projection showing steady growth. Kang Min blinked. "How?" Tiana leaned forward, excitement sparking in her voice. "We've been selling tradition. But what if we sell connection? People don't just want food, they want stories, culture, identity. If we make our online presence about experience instead of exclusivity, we bring the world to Korean cuisine, not push it away." He listened, awe quietly replacing fatigue. She continued, passion flowing with every word. "We'll launch an online storytelling campaign. Short videos from our chefs, glimpses into the history behind every dish. I'll manage the global content strategy. You focus on rebuilding the domestic trust." Side by side, we merge both worlds again. Kang Min exhaled slowly. For the first time in months, hope didn't feel like a lie. "Do you think the board will even listen?" he asked. She gave a confident little smirk. "They don't need to listen. They just need to see results." Over the next few weeks, Tiana became a quiet storm within the company. She moved through departments with calm authority, meeting marketing teams, retraining PR managers, modernizing social media campaigns. Many employees were skeptical. Some whispered behind her back, others refused to take direction from her. At one strategy meeting, an older executive scoffed. "You can't teach authenticity to foreigners," he said under his breath, not realizing she understood every word. Tiana turned slowly, her expression cool. "진짜 한국의 정신은 배타성이 아니라 환대예요." The true spirit of Korea isn't exclusion, it's hospitality. The room went still. Even the skeptic bowed his head slightly. From that day forward, whispers turned into wary respect. Every night she returned home long after midnight. Sometimes she found Kong Min asleep on the couch, company reports still in his hands. Other nights, he stayed awake waiting, brewing her favorite chamomile tea. They didn't speak much on those nights. They didn't have to. The quiet between them was now filled with partnership, not tension. One evening, he handed her a document, a new business registration form. She glanced at the name, Tiana Park Kim, Director of Global Strategy. Tears filled her eyes. "You don't have to do this." "I do," he said softly. "You've earned your place. And my name belongs beside yours, not above it." By early spring, their digital campaign launched. Short films featuring Hanul's chefs, family recipes, and snippets of Korean dialogue with English subtitles began circulating online. The world responded with warmth and fascination. A video titled "The Language of Healing" went viral. Tiana herself narrating the story of how she learned Korean as a child living with her maternal grandmother in Busan after losing her parents in a brutal accident. In the video, her voice was calm but filled with ache. Over gentle piano music, she spoke of long afternoons sitting beside her halmyeoni, tracing Hangul characters while cicadas hummed outside. "I learned Korean not from textbooks," she said softly, "but from the woman who taught me how to speak again after the world went silent." Within weeks, international food magazines featured her as the bridge between cultures. At first, the board resisted. Then they saw the numbers. Sales rose. Reviews improved. Investors returned. Kang Min sat through one meeting quietly beaming as analysts reported, brand engagement up 230%. Global partnerships expanding. When asked how this turnaround had happened, Tiana simply smiled and said, "Profit isn't built on pride. It's built on people." The room erupted in applause. Even Mr. Cho, who had once doubted her, stood to shake her hand. Kang Min watched from the corner, his chest tight with pride. "The woman I once underestimated now carries my empire." But while Hanul thrived, Jisoo Park's world crumbled. Her fabricated stories and anonymous leaks were traced back to her private media firm. Investors withdrew, sponsorships vanished, and her public image turned toxic overnight. She called Kang Min once, voice trembling through the receiver. "You ruined me." He paused before answering. "No, Jisoo. You ruined yourself when you tried to turn love into a transaction." She hung up without a word. Weeks later, Tiana stood on stage at a global business conference, her presentation titled "Unity Through Heritage." Behind her, a massive screen displayed images of smiling employees, bustling restaurants, and meals shared across cultures. Her voice was steady, clear. "Every culture has a heartbeat," she said. "For Korea, it's warmth. For me, it's gratitude. And when those two meet, something powerful happens. Not just in business, but in humanity." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Cameras flashed. Journalists scribbled notes. From the front row, Kang Min clapped until his palms stung. He felt something shift inside him, a mixture of awe, humility, and love deeper than any empire he'd ever built. That night, after the conference, they walked hand in hand along the river. The city shimmered in reflection, just as it had the night he'd once stared at it in despair. "Do you remember what you said back then?" Tiana asked softly. He smiled. "That I thought love would make me weaker. And now?" He stopped walking, turning her to face him. "Now I know it made me unbreakable." A gentle wind carried cherry blossoms through the air, scattering them across the path. He pulled her close, whispering in Korean, "사랑개운 결국 우리를 다시 세워주는 힘이야." Love, in the end, is the force that rebuilds us. She leaned her head against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart, the same beat that had once wavered, now strong again. Above them, Seoul glowed like a promise kept. By the time they returned home, the email notifications had already begun flooding in. Interview requests, partnership offers, congratulatory messages from around the world. Tiana scrolled through them, then turned to her husband with a soft smile. "Looks like we just saved your empire." Kang Min shook his head. "No," he said, wrapping his arm around her. "You saved it." She laughed lightly. "We saved each other." And for the first time in a long while, both of them believed it. The storm had not just passed. It had washed everything clean. Hanul Dining no longer belonged to a single man's pride. It belonged to a shared vision, rebuilt from love, strengthened by respect, and carried by a woman who had once been overlooked. And in that quiet truth, both of them finally understood. Empires may fall, but hearts that rebuild together never do. Spring returned to Seoul like a blessing. Cherry blossoms framed the city streets, soft pink petals drifting through the air like pieces of forgiveness. A year had passed since the storm, the scandals, the sleepless nights, the battle to rebuild. Hanul Dining was thriving again, stronger than before, not because of perfection, but because of grace. Inside their new glass-walled headquarters overlooking the Han River, the morning sun poured in through floor-to-ceiling windows. Tiana stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the light shimmer across the water. Her phone buzzed, messages from international investors, media outlets, and well-wishers. But what caught her eye was a simple note pinned to her calendar. 1 year later, we bloom. Behind her, Kang Min walked in quietly, his tie loose, his smile soft. He had changed, too, not just in the boardroom, but in spirit. There was humility where once there had been pride, peace where ambition had burned too bright. "Still working on your speech?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She smiled. "Almost done." "I can't believe graduation's tomorrow. Top of your class," he said proudly. "My brilliant wife." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with playful eyes. "Still can't believe you fell for a waitress, huh?" He chuckled. "I didn't fall. I crashed." Their laughter filled the room, light and unguarded. The following afternoon, the university auditorium brimmed with color and applause. Cameras flashed as graduates in caps and gowns walked across the stage. When Tiana's name was called, the crowd rose instinctively. Students, professors, even journalists who had once doubted her. She took the podium, her speech trembling only for a moment before finding strength. "When I first came to Korea," she began, "I didn't think I belonged. I made mistakes, faced stares, and learned the hard way that love and ambition don't always fit easily together. But I learned something else too. Storms don't come just to destroy. Sometimes they come to clear the path." Her eyes found Kang Min in the front row, smiling through tears. "I stand here today not as someone who conquered hardship, but as someone who was never alone through it. And to every woman, every person who has ever been told they don't belong, you do. You always did." The applause was thunderous. Kang Min rose to his feet, clapping until his hands hurt, his heart swelling with pride. That night, the celebration continued at home. Lanterns glowed softly along the garden path of their Han River house. Music played faintly in the background, laughter and clinking glasses filling the evening air. Friends, family, and employees gathered for their 5th wedding anniversary. The house, once silent and cold, now pulsed with warmth. In the middle of the festivities, Tiana suddenly gasped, hand on her belly. "Tiana?" Kang Min rushed to her side, her expression softened into a smile. "I think it's time." The room erupted into motion, shouts, hurried footsteps, car keys jangling. Hours later, under the sterile light of the hospital, two cries pierced the air. One soft, one fierce. A nurse smiled. "Twins," she said. "A boy and a girl." Tiana's tears spilled as she looked at the tiny faces nestled in her arms. Kang Min knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he touched his children for the first time. "They're perfect," he whispered. She smiled weakly. "They're us. Balance." He kissed her forehead, eyes glistening. "Welcome home, my strength." Days later, the world seemed brighter. Their twins, Hajun and Hana, brought a peace neither empire nor success could offer. Sleepless nights were filled with laughter, soft lullabies, and whispered dreams. Sometimes Kang Min would pause in the nursery doorway, watching Tiana hum to their children. Once, he whispered in Korean, voice low and full of awe, "사랑은 결국 우리를 완전하게 만들었어." Love, in the end, made us whole. Tiana smiled through her exhaustion. And to think, it all started with a cup of coffee. He laughed, brushing a petal from her hair. And a woman who wouldn't let me forget my humanity. A few months later, spring bloomed again, full, fragrant, unstoppable. Their anniversary celebration took place beneath cherry blossoms in the garden. Fairy lights twinkled above. Guests gathered around tables draped in white silk. Kang Min stood, glass in hand, the twins asleep in a nearby stroller. His voice was clear and steady as he raised a toast. "To the woman who rebuilt what I lost and made it greater. To my partner in every storm, in every sunrise." Tiana rose, her eyes shimmering as she clinked her glass against his. "And to never forgetting that love is the best business investment." The guests laughed, then cheered, glasses raised high. Above them, fireworks burst over the river. Gold, red, violet. The colors reflected in Tiana's eyes as she leaned against Kang Min's shoulder, their hands entwined. The twins stirred lightly in their stroller, lulled by the distant hum of celebration. Kang Min glanced down at them, then at Tiana. "We did it," he murmured. She nodded. "We didn't just survive the storm. We learned to dance in the rain." As the last fireworks faded, Seoul lay quiet beneath a blanket of stars. In the stillness, two souls who had once stood on opposite sides of pride and pain now stood together, rebuilt, renewed, and ready for whatever came next. Empires could crumble, fortunes could fall, but love, real, tested, and true, had become their legacy. And in that quiet, eternal moment, Kang Min finally understood. He had not married a waitress. He had married the woman who taught him what it meant to rise.
Would you risk your entire empire for love? If you were Kang Min, would you have taken Jisoo's offer? Or stood by Tiana, the woman who taught you what honor truly means? Thank you for watching Life in Stories, where every tale reminds us that love, courage, and second chances can change everything. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, comment your favorite moment, subscribe to Life in Stories so you never miss a powerful new episode.